Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 11th episode of the Today in Titletown Packers podcast. We got a lot to discuss today, lots to talk about. We're going to talk about the ugly win against the Washington Redskins last Sunday, 20-15. We're going to look ahead to this week against the Bears, who are still fighting for a playoff spot, believe it or not. And, we're just going to go over everything green and gold. I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Bron and Mason. Bron, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You can follow me on Instagram at Lambo Leapers.
All right, sounds good. And Mason, how about you?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it was a pretty lazy win on Sunday for the Packers, but at least it was a W, and we got that 1-game lead on the Vikings, and and the Niners beat the Saints, so we got the second seed currently. So couldn't be happier. And you guys can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Packer Posts.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty helpful that you zoom out. We're so zoomed in on the Packers looking pretty terrible on offense against the Redskins. But you look at other teams, the Saints lost. We're the 2 seed right now, and the Vikings were still 1 game up on them. And the Vikings, they didn't look extremely well against Detroit. They only scored 20 as well against an even worse defense. So that's something to be optimistic about. But today on the podcast, as we said, we're going to discuss last week's win. We're going to look ahead to this week's game against the Bears. But first, we have some news. Not much news to discuss. We're recording this on a Monday, which is odd for us. But Matt LaFleur, first Packers head coach in Packers history to win 10 games in his first season. That's pretty awesome. I mean, you go back to preseason and kind of look at everyone's expectations for the Packers this season. Sure, some were very optimistic because that's how sports fans are. But, I mean, realistically, you would be surprised if Matt LaFleur made the playoffs, if he was the 2 seed right now, which he is. So yeah, just a great you season for him. He's got some flaws. He's got some growing pains to overcome still, but he's done a great job.
Yeah, he absolutely has. And you look at the body of work the Packers have put forth so far this season, and it's win after win after win. And we've kind of gone through the adversity that we faced, and even when we're not playing great, we're coming out with wins. And it has a lot to do with the coaching, and it has a lot to do with the leadership in this team, and it starts with him. So. He's definitely a Coach of the Year candidate, and this is something that'll go down in history as one of the great Packers starts of all time.
Yeah, he was given a pretty good roster for his first year, and I don't think anybody outside of Wisconsin really expected the Packers to be in a position to get a first-round bye. But we're here, and we're kind of struggling right now. We're not the prettiest 10-3 team that there's ever been, but it's impressive. I don't think a first-year head coach is ever expected to do this well, but Matt LaFleur has been pretty impressive. He's just kind of getting through those first year kinks, and he's gonna I'm not trying to jinx anything, but he's gonna have a chance to play a playoff game, hopefully at Lambeau in his first ever season. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And have we kind of overstated how much more talented this roster is? I mean, on defense, on paper, there's certainly much more talent on that side of the ball, but they're not playing much better than they were last season. And then on offense, it's pretty much the same pieces on offense. Maybe got a little worse with the loss of Randall Cobb. I mean, we've upgraded the right guard spot, but I don't think this roster is much different, and a lot of people say that like it's because he's got Aaron Rodgers, because he's got such a great roster. But I mean, this is kind of almost the same team that we had last year, and we are in a much better spot at this point than we were at this point last season. So I think it's just incredible for him. Like you said, Bron, he's definitely a Coach of the Year candidate, or at least should be. He's not really recognized as that by the national media as of right now, but. Yeah, I think he's just done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and when you talk about the talent on the roster and if that's overstated or not, I don't know how, that's a hard question to answer because on defense, the talent is clearly, above and beyond what it was in 2018. Obviously, with the additions in the secondary, up front with the Smiths, I think it's clearly more talented than we've had in many years on defense. But like you said, on offense, we didn't really add anything in particular. I mean, even like Elton Jenkins, maybe the clear guy that we got in the offseason to help our offense, he kind of just plugged in and played that spot that Lane Taylor was playing at a decent level last year. And obviously he's been better than what Lane Taylor was for us, but we haven't seen anything, drastic from the offense in terms of improvement. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we stayed with a similar core and kind of ran with it and hoped that our defense would kind of take the reins and kind of balance us out as a team overall, and that's happened so far. And we're looking to still improve on both sides of the ball, but yeah, definitely something that Matt LaFleur has to take a lot of credit for, and he deserves all that credit for sure.
Just the biggest difference I've seen from 2018 to 2019 is just our free agent acquisitions. Zadarius and Preston replacing the old guys, Clay Matthews and Nick Perry. Those are huge upgrades. Clay Matthews and Nick Perry did not produce at all. Kyler Fackrell was our leading sack leader last year. And then getting Adrian Amos in to take the place of Clinton Dix / Kentrell Bryce. That was just a huge game changer. We know Kentrell Bryce was not a good safety, and Clinton Dix was a huge liability back there. Was just not didn't put the safe in safety, if you know what I mean. Adrian Amos is just a nice little security blanket back there, and that's pretty much changed our defense. Our defense hasn't really been the same since the first 3 games, but I think it's been better than it has last year. And, just like you guys were saying, I think we had a lot of expectations for Equanimeous St. Brown and MVS coming into the year that they could be true number 2 and maybe 3 or 4 wide receivers. But that hasn't really been the case, obviously. And, I think the offense has really seen, the lack of a clear number 2 guy besides Devontae Adams, and Jimmy Graham's level of play hasn't really been what we've been paying him to do. So, I mean, I think we're better than we were definitely in 2018. New offense, new everything. But
yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the casual fan perspective is like, well, our offense isn't setting the world on fire, so he's not that good of a coach. He's not coach of the year, but head coach is not offensive coordinator. It's not passing game coordinator. It's head coach. You coach the entire team. The whole team looks up to him. It's about leadership. It's about listening to your players. It's about accountability. And I think that's something he's excelled at. I mean, you look at the culture of the locker room. Everyone is like a big family. You see the locker room videos after every game. It's like a big family there. And that's something that I didn't really sense in years past. So I think that's something that he really excels at, connecting with teammates or connecting with his players. We heard a lot about that this offseason, how he kind of how that's kind of his game, how he's able to connect so well with his players, and we've definitely seen that. I mean, maybe the offense isn't where we would want it to be, but I think we're 10-3. That doesn't just happen. It's not like we're the Patriots and we've played a bunch of cupcake teams early on in the season and now we're up to 10 wins. Like, we've had a pretty tough schedule, and it just being at 10-3, the second seed in the NFC, that alone is impressive, especially under a rookie head coach.
Yeah, we've had a couple tough games, but I wouldn't say our schedule has been one of the tougher ones in the league in terms of the teams we've faced. At least, obviously, we've had to go and face some tough road stretches and things like that. So I do think we've kind of benefited by facing some of the, some backup quarterbacks and some of the league's worst quarterbacks. You're looking at, the guys we faced. It's really Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott in terms of the quarterbacks on that elite level that we faced this season. So that's the challenge that we have to kind of get accustomed to and that we've really yet to face. So that's going to be interesting to see how we do, going against some of these teams come playoff time. With these better quarterbacks. And going back to what Mason said about Adrian Amos being kind of that safety blanket, he's really been maybe the most consistent secondary player that we've had in years, and that's been a huge boost to our team. He's played basically every snap for us this season. He's been one of the most reliable players on our team overall, and he had one of his best games as a Packer last Sunday against the Redskins. So definitely I would say that's, one of the better additions we've had in free agency in the last decade. So looking forward to what he can do for us going into the future.
All right, and our next piece of news, not really news, but MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, had such high hopes for him coming into this season, and he's been nowhere to be found the last 6-7 weeks. And on Sunday, he only had 10 snaps, which is the fewest of the season for him. And he recorded no catches, no yards, obviously. But yeah, only 10 snaps. He's getting buried on the depth chart right now by guys like Alan Lazard and Jake Kumaro. I mean, it's so hard to just like pin. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, MVS is a guy that we all had high hopes for coming into this season, but something I don't think Packers fans really realize is that he was a fifth round pick. I feel like we, as Packers fans, kind of expect guys to produce regardless of where they're drafted. And I think we have to realize that, a fifth round pick isn't going to come in and light the world up, especially not in his first, second year. He's played well for us, especially last season, more so than this season. But I'm not looking for him to come out and play extremely well and be a number one receiver. I just don't think that that's something we drafted him to be. I don't know what you want to. What are you looking for by drafting three receivers in the fourth, fifth, and sixth round? I mean, you can't expect to get a number one receiver out of that. And
Well,
we're a draft and develop football team, but that's not the way we should be going about business if we expect to get guys, especially number one guys in the draft that late.
I think the thing with that frustrates a lot of people with MVS is, I mean, even going back to last year, early in this season, he was our deep threat. We weren't relying on him to be our one or even our wide receiver two. He was the guy you can throw a bomb to, get 40 yards on a play. He's not even getting that anymore. He's not even like beating guys with his speed. That's kind of like Alan Lazard for us right now. We're running him on a lot of routes MVS used to run, which is weird considering their skill sets. But yeah, I think that I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting him to come in and light the world on fire. I'm sure some people were, but at least I wasn't. That's his role. He's the deep threat guy. He's going to burn by a corner and gain a nice 35, 40 yards on a play, but he hasn't even been that, which is very disappointing.
I think just after last year, we saw him just all of a sudden jump in front of Geronimo Allison on their depth chart and pretty much be our third receiver. And he was balling out. He had a couple touchdowns. He finished with about 600 yards. And I just think going into the season, losing Randall Cobb, fans just were really hoping MVS could be the number two and produce. But as we saw these last 5 games, he's only had 2 catches for 11 yards in the last 5 games. That's not wide receiver number 2 type material. Alan Lazard has definitely passed him on the depth chart, and yeah, like you said, 10 snaps last week. And I don't think he was listed on the injury report at all. I think I don't know what's going on with him, man. It's hard to pinpoint. I just think he is that
I
deep
mean,
threat guy, and yeah,
it
it's not
could
working.
be an injury thing. He was dealing with that ankle sprain, I believe. But that was like week 6. I mean, that should be completely healed by now. He's not on the injury report like you said, so I don't think it's injury related. I just think like
I think it's just the emergence of Alan Lazard and getting these tight ends involved. Like we saw Jay Sternberger get a red zone target. We saw Robert Tonyan last week score a touchdown. I just think other weapons are emerging, and I don't know, people are just passing him up. Like you said, he's a deep ball guy, and I don't think our offense has really been targeting the deep ball lately.
It's something that it's not something you can just tangibly look at and say, okay, this is the reason he's not playing well or he's not playing at all barely. It's a combination of things. Like you said, Alan Lazard emerging, Geronimo Allison is still getting snaps as like the wide receiver 3 slot receiver type guy. And then obviously, like you said, the tight ends. Jay Sternberger on the he's in the game on the first play, and after we activated him from IR, all of a sudden he's getting some significant snaps. And obviously Robert Tonyan as well and Jimmy Graham are taking up a lot of the plays as well, and Mercedes Lewis obviously. So there's a lot of guys that we have to get involved, and Aaron Jones is another one that's taking up a lot of the passing game, and he's really doing a lot for us. So there's just not a lot of not a lot of balls to go around. And when you're passing the ball for 180 yards, on average in the last 5 weeks, that's just there's not a lot of room for success for a lot of guys. So I don't know. It's just something that we have to monitor, and you never know. He could start to play well if and then he's all of a sudden back up in the game playing a little more. We've seen Jake Kumro kind of his snaps have gone down after getting quite a few during the middle of the season. So. And that I don't think that has anything to do with his play in particular. I just think, like you said, Alan Lazard, the tight ends. So it's just something that it's kind of a fluid. I think it's a fluid thing that we're looking at right now, and we're gonna have to see how he progresses as we head into the playoffs.
you look at all the wide receivers on this roster. Is there a guy that maybe Rodgers trusts less than MVS? I mean, it seems like every time MVS is on the field, every time he's targeted, it's followed up by the shot of Rodgers giving him eyes or like barking at him or doing it whatever hand gesture he does. Because I feel like he and Rodgers just haven't been able to get on the same page. We've seen so many Going back to last season, we've seen so many times Rodgers targets him on a deep throw, and it's just a little short or a little deep. I don't think he can find that rhythm with MVS like maybe he can for other receivers on the roster. It's like going back to training camp, you hear Rodgers talk about all these young receivers like Alan Lazard. That's been his favorite this year. Last year was Jake Kumaro. He's since even in Devontae Adams' bad season, his sophomore season in 2015. Every week, Rodgers was like, nope, still like his skill set, still think he's a talented player, still going to give him targets. We haven't seen him do that with MVS. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, maybe it's something like, maybe it's like as the weeks have gone on, Aaron Rodgers has just, in the meetings with Matt LaFleur and things like that, Saturday morning type stuff. Maybe it's Aaron Rodgers going to Matt, this guy's just not ready. Like, it must be something. Obviously, early on in his rookie season, there was talks about him kind of struggling with the playbook and things like that, similar to what Jamon Moore was at. And obviously, MVS kind of got out of that funk, and he obviously produced for us more, but maybe he's just not ready. This is a new offense once again, so he's kind of had to learn from the start, just like he did last year. And maybe this is just something he's not having an easy time with, picking up, the new offense in general, and maybe he's just not ready. I think that could be it, and that's maybe why we've seen his play go down, his playing time, because he's not producing, and maybe he's not got a full grip on the offense.
I'm really interested to see what the Packers do this offseason with wide receivers. Geronimo Allison is, I think we only signed him to a tender, right? A 1 year little deal.
Just a 1 year.
Yes,
and it doesn't.
Free agent.
Yeah, and honestly, the way he's playing, I don't know if he'll be back. I really don't. So
I tend to doubt it.
I doubt it too. And I know
really
this draft class.
It really depends on how he plays down the stretch here. If he starts to produce, like it looks like he has flashed some kind of, what he was doing at the beginning of last season. If he can continue playing at that level, I think there's a shot we bring him back once again on a really low level contract. But, considering the guys that we have at receiver right now, I don't know what we're going to be able to do at that position. So maybe he is a guy we bring back.
I don't think he's been good enough all season. I mean, he had a good game against the Giants, and then the Redskins, he caught one pass where he's very lucky he was ruled down by contact because he fumbled it. He fumbled it, pretty bad fumble, didn't count luckily for him. But yeah, I don't think he's done anything at all. He's been so disappointing, more disappointing than MVS. And maybe that's just because I didn't have very high expectations for MVS going into the season. But Geronimo, I don't want to get into Geronimo, but he frustrates me more and more every week. What does he provide to an offense? I don't know. I don't want to get into that. Moving along here, Bron, I believe you have the Packers, what needs to happen for the Packers to clinch a playoff spot this week? So if you want to get into that.
Yeah, so it looks like for the Packers this week, obviously we've got to come out with a win against Chicago. A huge game, because they're coming out 3 straight wins. And the only other thing that has to happen for us to clinch a playoff spot this week would be a Cowboys victory over the Rams. And, that looks a little suspect right now based on the Cowboys' recent games and how they've been playing and what the Rams just did to the Seahawks on Monday night. But regardless, the Packers control their own destiny in terms of both the bye and the playoffs. If they come out with the 3 wins in these final 3 games, then they will clinch a bye, likely the number 2 seed at this point. So, that's definitely going to be interesting to see what we do moving forward and how early we can clinch a playoff spot. That way we can kind of get into resting starters and things like that if the bye isn't in play.
Yeah, man, I'm just happy we're not in the same position as we were last year. I remember for my Instagram, I made 2 different path to the playoff posts where I pretty much just laid out who needed to lose and how many games they needed to lose. And obviously having the Packers having to win out. I did one if the Packers could have won 5 in a row, and I did one where they had to win 3 in a row. Yeah, we're not at that point. As long as we can win 3 in a row here, like you said, Bron, control our own destiny, first round bye. That's kind of what we're looking at. And yeah, I don't trust the Cowboys to help us out this weekend. They've been very rough as of late.
Yeah, that's awesome. We 2 seasons now. All of us Packers pages on Instagram have been making these stupid path to the playoffs path to the playoff post where we have to win out. We need a million other teams to lose out and whatever nonsense we needed. We don't need that anymore. We're 10-3. That's amazing because I'm so beyond sick of seeing those posts because I get my hopes up. I'm like, this could happen. We could make the playoffs at 9-7, and yeah, it would never happen, obviously.
It looked so doable last year. I literally the week of the time I posted it, we lost. We lost to the Cardinals. That one was down the drain, and then we lost to the Bears, and that one was down the drain. But it looked possible the way it was laid out. But yeah,
I remember that post.
It was a waste. Yeah, I'd rather have it how we are in 2019. Just win out.
That's so funny because when we fired McCarthy after the Cardinals game, we won. We blew out the Falcons next week, week 14, and before that Falcons game, everyone was saying, "All right, we're gonna win this week, but don't get your hopes up, Packer fans, because I mean this is a bad team, a team we should beat. Don't get your hopes up for the playoffs." And then we blow them out, and what do you see? All these every Packer fans getting their hopes up, which I was too.
Yeah, the way it ended up going was we wouldn't have even made it anyway if we won out, which was disappointing. But luckily, we don't have to worry about that this year, and it's pretty much smooth sailing from here on out, regardless of kind of what happens. You would have to think if we get one more win, we're in. You know what I mean? Like, do you guys agree with that? Do you think 11 would do it?
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
What did McCarthy used to always say? 10 wins, then we talk about the playoffs.
Well, this year is different because we've got such a top-heavy NFC. It's like 11's kind of like you're kind of at like that point where you probably will get in, and that's crazy to kind of even say. 11 wins is a complete that's like almost a first-round bye. You would think 12 is the first seed most years. So it's a weird year, but we're lucky to be at that top and in that top-heavy NFC, and we're on that top side. So it's kind of cool to just after 2 years of just not being in the conversation that we would like to be in, to be at that number 2 seed. It's something special, and we got to enjoy these moments while we can with Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully we can go all the way this year.
It's been too long, man. It's been way too long.
10-3. When's the last time we had 10 wins by week 14? It's gotta be 2014, right?
Couldn't even tell you. We haven't had 10 wins in a season since 2016, and that was a stretch.
Yeah, that was. We had to run.
We had to pull out 6 in a row. Yeah.
Man. So I mean, we haven't been in this position where we don't need anyone else's help, and it's actually very likely that we'll make the playoffs since probably 2015 maybe. But anyways, we're gonna move along here. Our last piece of quote news, not really news. Tyler Ervin comes in, claimed last week off waivers, and he comes in and he rejuvenates the whole punt return unit. He gained 51 punt return yards on how many punts, Mason?
4. He had 2 fair catches too.
Four punt returns for 51 yards compared to weeks 1 through 13. Our 3 combined punt returners had -8 yards on, I believe, 11 punt returns. We were on pace to set the record for the fewest punt return yards in an NFL season. It's been talked about ad nauseum. We were at -8. The NFL record was 27 by the 1965 St. Louis Cardinals, and now we're up to 43 on the season.
Yeah,
40. Good math.
Yeah, good
really
math.
Cool.
I know.
It was really cool to see. After every punt return. That's the longest punt return for the Packers this season. Now that's the longest return for the Packers. That was kind of fun to watch, and definitely, that was something that kind of was a big momentum gain for us. Where even in a game where it's not particularly, a blowout or anything like that, that was definitely something that you felt like we can go out and win, just because, that was probably the biggest issue with our team going into that game, and to get that corrected in a way, looked like the blocking was a lot better, and obviously we've got a guy able to return it for a decent amount. We were winning the field position battle all game, and that was something we hadn't done in a while, and I was impressed with that aspect of the game.
I don't think the blocking was exponentially better. I mean, it was kind of the same thing Traymon Smith was dealing with, but Tyler Ervin, he's not messing around. He takes that ball and he runs with it. Traymon Smith was a lot of lateral movement, running backwards, obviously, because we had -8 punt return yards on the season. Tyler Ervin doesn't dance around when he catches the ball like some of those other guys would. and obviously it worked out well. So
Yeah, a guy like that, running back, hard runner. He's not gonna, look around to finesse guys. He's gonna try to power through them, and that's what he did.
He legit got us to the 50 like 3 times. That's crazy to think about. That our longest punt return of the season going into this year or going into this game was 3, and he had 4 of them over 10 yards. Like it's a little thing, but I feel like it helps a lot.
yeah, it does. Field position. I mean, the offense can do anything with the field position, but
No,
Yeah,
it was
let's talk
definitely
about
great.
that offense. Let's talk about that offense.
All right, why don't we take a deep dive into the Redskins game from
Yeah,
last
let's
Sunday?
talk about that. Talk about that offense from the Redskins game. Obviously, we go up 14-0, and things are looking great. What was that? The first quarter, we were up 14-0. Maybe
Yes,
early second. Yeah, right. So,
late first quarter.
late first quarter. Okay, so obviously as Packer fans, we're like, oh, this is gonna be a blowout. December football. This is what we were looking for, and then we just kind of stalled. I don't even know how to explain it, but after those 2 touchdowns, we kind of stalled in the passing game as Aaron Jones kind of continued to do what he does. But we'll get into all that. But what do you guys think of the performance overall?
personally, I was disappointed. Like you were saying, we went up 14-0 in the first quarter. I thought it was going to be another, Raiders game where Aaron was just about to go off, but we scored 6 points in the last 3 quarters against one of the worst teams in the NFL. I was disappointed. It's just our offense was pretty stale again. The defense held up. Adrian Amos had a really good game. We beat up Dwayne Haskins. He was looking rough by halftime. But and then we had another Aaron Jones game. You can't complain about that. Seeing Aaron Jones go off was refreshing. I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a classic Aaron Jones 2019 blow up game. But other than that, I was just disappointed. I really did want to see the Packers just beat up on the Redskins and get a little confidence boost going into having Chicago come to Lambeau next week. But it just didn't happen, and that's pretty much all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I'm not even kidding. That was one of the worst games I've ever watched. It's up there with the Cardinals game from last year. It's up there with. It wasn't like a bad game to watch like the San Francisco game was. It was just unbelievably boring. Our defense was giving up yards, but would eventually force a punt, and then our offense, you just knew they weren't going to do anything. That's how I was. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, that was one of the worst games I've seen him play since I started watching football. I swear to God, it was so frustrating watching that guy. I mean, it's impossible to know without the all 22 being out to see who was like which routes he was turning down or whatever, but it certainly looked like he was turning down a lot of open guys and scrambling for no reason. Every play he would take the ball, start running around, pointing at guys, waving guys over. And that it felt like a 2018 game from Aaron Rodgers, and we haven't really seen that this year. We haven't seen him go back to those old tendencies. I mean, in certain spots he has, but we haven't seen him do it for a full game like he was on Sunday. And yeah, like I said, you got to watch the coach's tape to really see what he was seeing, to see how poorly he was, exactly how poorly. But I mean, he was just so out of rhythm in this season. I've been actually pretty impressed with how he's been playing within the rhythm of the offense, because we know that's not really what he wants to do per se, but some games he's played strictly within the rhythm, like the Raiders game or the Chiefs game. And those were our best wins. Those were our best offensive performances in the Cowboys game. So I wish he would stop trying to play backyard football where he runs around and points at guys, because I don't know, maybe he can't do it anymore. I don't know, maybe he doesn't have the same guys that he used to. He definitely doesn't. But I wish he would buy into the offense. You know what I mean?
I think he'll see it, on tape. I think this is just one of those things where it's just like the feel of the game. Obviously he had something in his mind where he was seeing things that maybe wasn't on the field or whatever. Like, it's kind of hard to explain because you don't really know what goes through such an intelligent football mind like Aaron Rodgers. What would make him kind of deviate from the game plan and the certain reads on first and second reads and things like that to go scramble. But for me, I think this is one of those things where he's gonna look at it and see what he did wrong, and it must have just been one of those games where he just wasn't feeling it. Obviously, the Redskins defense isn't anything that would scare anybody, especially a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. But Yeah, I'm not sure what went on there. It's hard to say, really. I wasn't encouraged by that performance, really, by the entire offense as a whole. We're just lucky that we've got so many ways to win on the offensive side of the ball because, in a game where our passing offense isn't that great and plays the way that they did, most teams wouldn't win games like that because a lot of teams, a lot of people talk about, there's nothing that we can hang our hat on, nothing that we do well, nothing that we do really particularly well. And to me, that doesn't mean anything. That for me, that's just something a defense can focus in on and try to stop every week. But the way the Packers play and win, they don't have anything in particular that they just do really well. They have so many things that they can do well. So when one thing's not working, they're going to run the football or they're going to throw the football or whatever's not working, they can overcompensate by doing something else really well. And that's not something every team in the league can do, and that's what's gotten them so many wins. And it's just one of those things where, Rodgers didn't play great this week. Well, we'll have to see what happens next week, but obviously Aaron Jones had a great game and that got us enough to get the win. So, and that's all that really matters in the end.
Yeah, Griff, I'm with you there. That game was super boring. I've never ever even contemplated doing this, but I really wanted to turn on the the Saints
too,
and
man.
Niners game towards the end of it.
Me too, man. I was seeing those
boring.
in-game updates. The Cynthia or what's her face, Christina Thompson, bringing in their touchdown Niners, touchdown Saints, 48-46, whatever the score was. I was like, I wish I was watching that right now. I
Same,
wish our
man.
team looked like one of those teams. That's
You
all I
guys
can
are
think.
doing it wrong, man. You guys are doing it wrong. I got both games on, one on my phone, one on the TV.
Well, look at you.
Yeah, you
Jeez.
gotta watch
See,
both
I can't
games
do
when
that.
they matter that much.
I don't know. It distracts me. I try to pay attention to the Packers game, but like,
Yeah, me too.
I wish we could have blown them out so we could have caught the end of the game because that was insane. That really was. That's probably the game of the year so far.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Bron, that is something that I'm trying to think of, that I'm trying to be optimistic of as a Packers fan. Like, maybe we're not the best passing offense in the league. Maybe we don't have the best running game in the league. Maybe we don't have the best defense in the league. We don't have any of those, but we can do all of them pretty well, I'd say. Like you said, when the passing game's not working, we're going to ride Aaron Jones, which, to kind of talk about Aaron Jones here, he had another huge game, 192 total yards and a touchdown, 8 point something yards per carry, which is by far his highest of the season. He had a monster game, monster game. He was just, every time he touched the ball, he was getting positive yards, making a guy miss, or whatever, showing off his explosiveness.
Yeah, he was our leading receiver as well.
Yeah. It just, every time he does that, I just think, why don't we do this every week? Why don't we feature him every single week? Because every time we feature him, we usually end up doing pretty well. I mean, the score won't say that in this game, but in the second half, in I think the third quarter, we went 3-4 drives where we just wouldn't give him the ball, and it was like I said, it was every play was Rodgers scrambling and waving and eventually throwing the ball in the dirt. So it's just so maddening. Why don't we give him the ball on most of our plays? I just don't get it. I mean, I love Jamal Williams. I don't even think this is a Jamal Williams issue, because I think Aaron was in the game a sufficient amount, but why aren't we giving him the ball? Why aren't we giving him touches? Why are we trying to play this garbage passing offense that is clearly not working? That is just so frustrating to me, because it's what we dealt with all of 2017 and all of 2018. And I think Matt LaFleur does a way more creative job of using Aaron Jones, than maybe Mike McCarthy did. But it just, come on, focus your game on him. Plan a game around this guy, because that should be our offensive identity, in my opinion. A lot of talk about what's our offensive identity. It needs to be Aaron Jones.
Yeah, man, this conversation is giving me 2018 vibes. Like, literally, that was the biggest argument on Twitter, on Instagram, everything. We just wanted to feature Aaron Jones, and it never happened. And we got a glimpse of it this year. We've seen him just absolutely ball out, both in the rushing and in the receiving game, and he's just kind of been faded recently, and it's been hurting our offense, I feel like.
That's the one thing I'm hoping for. I can't imagine Matt LaFleur would do this, but I'm hoping it's kind of like a 2018 Patriots situation where in the playoffs, they just used Sony Michel more than they had all season, and they became a power running team. Maybe that's what we're going to do. Maybe we're going to host our first playoff game, hopefully host it, and we're just going to ride Aaron Jones into the dirt. But that is a stupid mindset to have if you're Matt LaFleur. Like, come on. I know he's kind of injury prone, but come on, win your games, man.
No, we
Feature
are
your
winning
talent.
games. We're winning
Yeah,
games.
but
I
I
mean,
mean, I
when
guess.
we're getting we're getting a lot of games that we're not playing our best football, and if he's saying, look, we're not gonna display everything that we have in some of these games that we can win without doing that. Maybe that's his prerogative as the head coach. I'm not sure what it is, but as long
That's
as we're
stupid.
winning, it's hard to complain about things like this. I mean, there's teams that are playing even worse than us and losing, or playing even better than us than losing. You look at the Lions; they've lost all their games that they've lost by less than a touchdown, and that's definitely difficult to stomach as a team and an organization when you're playing good football and losing. That was kind of like us last year. We were in every game, until it started getting towards the end. We were in every game against these great teams, and we just weren't coming out with wins, and things just weren't going our way, even when we were playing good football. This year,
Yeah,
it's kind of
and
the opposite. We're not playing our best football, but we're coming out with big wins each and every week.
yeah, it definitely is the opposite. And as I said last year, as a lot of people were saying last year, we are destined to win more games in 2019 than we did in 2018 because we were all those games were so close. And just regression to the mean, you're going to win more games if you're losing close games. That's just kind of how it is. And same can be said for this year, I feel like, because we are in a lot of close games and we've been winning a lot of close games, and that is unsustainable just as much as losing close games is. The ball has kind of bounced our way in a couple games this season that maybe has given us a win or two over the course of the season. But all that matters is that we're winning games, and hopefully in the last 3 weeks, and hopefully we get a bye in the playoffs. Hopefully we can kind of figure out an identity on offense, and hopefully it's going to be Aaron Jones. Yeah, I just hope we're ready come playoff times, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
I'm not worried about really who it is so much as if it's working. And I don't even know if I necessarily want an offensive identity at all. But as long as we're winning football games, let's just keep that rolling, and we can complain when we start losing.
I mean, yeah, we are a jack of all trades right now, but you don't want the offense to be Aaron Jones. You don't want him to be our main player because he's better than any other option we have right now. The passing game, I don't know what it is, but it's not working. So I think the clear answer is to utilize Aaron Jones. Another thing that's confusing. This is off topic, but why aren't we using Jamal and Aaron in the game at the same time anymore? We were teasing that at the beginning of the season. We just stopped doing it, and I think that's how we created so many mismatches with the linebackers, with the opposing linebackers. We could use both of them out of the backfield, and one of them are going to be open because teams don't usually have more than one cover linebacker. And I think we were getting away with that. We were succeeding with that. I don't know why we just went away from that. I don't know why we stopped with all these fun backfield routes. I don't know why we stopped with Dan Vitale. It's like we tease these things early on and they just completely fallen off. Maybe I hate this, but maybe it has to do with Devontae Adams. Maybe it does. I don't know. This offense is so hard to wrap your head around right now.
Maybe we should just sit Devontae. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Not-
People think we should trade Devontae Adams. People think that. Real
Please
people.
no.
No intelligent human thinks that we should trade our best.
I don't know, man.
No intelligent person thinks that.
Where are we going to trade him for? Odell
Wasn't that
Beckham?
on wasn't that on the Bill
Michael?
Michaels show or some Wisconsin local radio station? They tweeted out, "Should the Packers trade Devontae Adams? Listen here at whatever link."
Oh my
Like I swear to
God.
God, some verified Twitter account posted that. They got clowned on in the replies, of course, but yeah, that's stupid.
Well, with that, we're going to move on to the defense here. How do you guys think we played? Against not a great Redskins team, but we did hold them to 15 points. One of those touchdowns coming in garbage time. So, how do you guys think we did overall?
I thought they played well. I thought they played well enough against a far inferior opposition. It kind of brought me back to the first 3 weeks of the season where we were playing Joe Flacco, Kirk Cousins when he was still terrible, and Mitch Trubisky, where we just looked dominant. And that's what it looked like. Dwayne Haskins had no idea what he was doing. He was also injured, which helped, but the pressure was in his face all game. He had no idea where to go with the ball. He wasn't playing in rhythm. So I think that's what you wanted against a rookie quarterback who was with no head coach, with such a dumpster fire franchise, and last in the league. That offense is last in the league in every category. So I think I was pretty satisfied.
Yeah, man. Obviously, going against Dwayne Haskins, he's been pretty bad this year. Rookie year, not really much to expect from him. And yeah, he got hurt pretty early in the game, and we were able to sack him 4 times and pick him off once. That's the kind of performance you want against an offense like the Redskins. They were just running the ball a lot. Adrian Peterson had 20 carries and a touchdown, 76 yards. That was pretty much their offense. They were just kind of exploiting the fact that our run defense has been pretty bad all year. But I thought the pass defense held up pretty well. Finally, Dwayne Haskins hooked up with Terry McLaurin. I believe that was their first touchdown together all year. Terry McLaurin was Case Keenum's favorite receiver, and he was balling out when Case Keenum was a starter. But yeah, that one garbage time touchdown, like you were saying, Bron, was the reason it looked so close. This game, 15 points, like that's a pretty good game from the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. The defense definitely played a really solid game, despite kind of, getting gashed a little bit by Darius Geist to start. But speaking of some of those injuries, Dwayne Haskins and Darius Geist, not that we want to, injure guys, but I've noticed that this team, this defense, this pass rush is just a much more physical unit than we've had in many years. And, we're just being very physical when we're getting to the quarterback, when we're tackling guys. It's just something we haven't seen. And the evidence of that is those guys coming up limping a lot. And just the last 2 weeks, you saw Daniel Jones go out, and Dwayne Haskins as well, coming down with ankle injuries and things like that. Darius Geist went out, obviously, and yeah, I just think that physicality is big because we want to assert our dominance on that defensive side of the ball. That's a huge thing that we haven't done in many years, and a lot of teams, especially last year, they were beating us even, when we were playing neck and neck with them in terms of talent. A lot of the times we would lose games like that because the other team was more physical than us. And I think in this case this year, we're the more physical team in most of our matchups, and that's what's helping us win games as well.
Yeah, man. So Darius last week was absolutely an animal, like he has been all year. He's just constantly just bull rushing, getting the lineman in the face of the quarterback. Obviously getting past the lineman, getting sacks, and we finally saw Kenny Clark kind of break out. He's been a little quiet when it comes to stats this year, but he had a 1.5 sack game, and that's just good to see because we had very high expectations for Kenny Clark going into his contract year, and yeah, he was an animal just like we saw last year. That was really good to see.
Yeah, ever since Kenny Clark kind of dealt with those injuries he was dealing with, kind of got over those and got healthy, he's been a monster, and it's not showing up in the stat sheet every week, but it certainly did on Sunday against the Redskins, and he's looked great for us, and he's just been an absolute disruptor in the middle there, and we need him to continue that level of play heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's kind of the player Kenny Clark has always been. He's not going to light up the stat sheet with tackles for losses or sacks, but he's definitely a dominant defensive tackle. He mans the middle. He is the guy that opposing offenses have to worry about in the run game. He gets doubled on almost every play. That just goes to show how disruptive he is as a player, and he's finally getting over that injury. We saw him last week. He played very well last week as well. So that's good to see. But the entire front four, really, I thought was the highlight of the defense because they were creating pressure on. It seemed like every drop back, someone was coming free, and I think we're finally starting to see Mike Pettin get a little fun with his alignments up front. We saw on quite a few snaps on Sunday, we saw the combinations of Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, and Kenny Clark, 3 outside linebackers and only 1 defensive lineman. And that's something we were kind of talking about. And going back to training camp, we were really excited to see how Mike Pettin would utilize such dynamic players up front, and he's getting fun with it. And that's such a dominant combination too. I know there's the one play going around Twitter right now where it's that alignment, and almost immediately as Haskins touched the ball, all 4 of those guys beat their guys, and he's got nowhere to go. Obviously, it didn't help that he was injured, but he had nowhere to go with it, and he just took a sack. So I think we should definitely start utilizing that combination more often, especially as Rashawn Gary continues to develop more and more every single week.
Our pass rush has been maybe the most consistent part of our entire football team the entire season. I mean, just the level of play that those guys bring out each and every week, it's kind of unprecedented, really. With the complete overhaul of talent that we've had, just absolute dominance each and every week. We're dominating in the trenches, and that's how you win football games. And all these little things. It's nothing like our passing game is lighting it up. It's nothing like that. It's the little things that we do, and that's why we have 10 wins in 13 weeks. The more little things we do, that's how we beat teams. And the pass rush is certainly no little factor in why we're winning football games, and it's making it easier on everybody on defense and offense.
Yeah, we saw on Sunday Mike Pettin kind of revert back to what he's known for, what he's good at, and that's creating free rushers with all kinds of blitzes where everyone lines up at the line and you don't know who's coming. He seems to utilize that kind of defense more against inexperienced quarterbacks, as we said before on this podcast. But I mean, he should be doing that more often now. It seems like, and obviously this because he only does it against inexperienced quarterbacks, but it seems like every time we load up the box and then send like some nickel corner and put maybe Kenny Clark in coverage, which we did a couple times, seems like that always works out well for the defense. It certainly did on Sunday, as we saw. So I'd like to see Mike Pettin get a little more aggressive with his blitzes, because I mean, whatever he was doing wasn't working. His passive style of defense, as we saw for a stretch in the middle of the season, that was just getting chewed up by opposing quarterbacks and opposing offensive coordinators every week. So it's nice to see him kind of revert back to what he's good at as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, there was a lot of third downs on Sunday where we kind of dropped 7 or and we're rushing 4, stuff like that. And a lot of the time, we're better off just sending our guys and doing what we do best on defense, because that kind of keeps because a guy like Haskins, who's hurt at that time, only has so much time and can't really move. So if we're sending guys, he's a rookie quarterback, and he doesn't have that vision where he can just go get the read really quick and just throw the football. Unless it's open, which with Jair Alexander back there, his first read a lot of the time isn't going to be open. So I just think a lot of the time we should be sending blitzes more often on third down, which we have done, but it's got to, I don't know the exact stat, but it's got to be around 50-50 where we're either sending blitzes on third and longs or we're dropping a lot of guys into coverage.
Yeah, we were without Kevin King last week, and I thought Tramon Williams and Josh Jackson held up pretty well. Tramon Williams has had a significant role in this defense, but we haven't really seen a lot of Josh Jackson, and I thought he played pretty well.
I agree, man. He had 20 snaps, and after really not playing much at all this season on defense, and after we heard that Kevin King was going to be out, something I immediately thought was, well, this is Josh Jackson's chance to come in and play, because at least some snaps, because really you would have to think Tramon is the next guy, because Tony Brown was also injured, so Tramon was the next guy to move to the outside, and he's been playing slot for us. So it was really Chandon Sullivan and Josh Jackson who were splitting those slot snaps, and Chandon Sullivan obviously kind of that Swiss Army knife playing all over the secondary, but Josh Jackson really he held up nicely, and it was good to see because he's been coming back from injuries and just kind of getting back in the flow of the defense, and he did a good job of that on Sunday.
Yeah, it's nice to ease him back into it against such an incompetent offense. And, Tony Brown was also out along with Kevin King. So it really he did get the call. He had to come in, next man up, and he performed very well, as you both said. What I liked is we kind of shadowed Jair Alexander with over Terry McLaurin, which I wish we would do more of with Jair. I wish we would let him follow the other team's number one receiver. It seemed like we were only doing that because Kevin King was out. But I think Kevin King or Jair Alexander is definitely our best cover corner, and we've seen kind of opposing receivers eat us up, and maybe that's because they're lining up on Kevin King a lot of the time. So yeah, I wish we would shadow Jair more often.
Jair was so good on Sunday.
He always is, man.
He is. He really is such a good player. He's really established himself. Especially with Kevin King out this week, he showed what he can do. And he's the clear number 1 corner in Green Bay, clear top 10 corner in the NFL. I'm so proud of what he's done for us so far, and he's been that anchor in that secondary that we needed and that we haven't had since like Sam Shields, and that's going back now. So I was very, very excited to see him kind of shut down a young up and coming star at wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. And yeah, I'd like to see him definitely come out cause, and shadow other receivers, because when he sets his like sights on a guy and he kind of learns his tendencies throughout the game, like, and I noticed he kept getting better as the game went on, until the second half things started, different personnel started coming in, and McLaurin started playing better. At that point, Jair wasn't shadowing him completely, but in the first half, which he just continued to kind of key in on Terry's tendencies, and he just outperformed him in every way. I don't even know if he allowed him a catch in the first half. Did he? It might have been one, no more than
I don't
one.
think so. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it was very impressive by Jair, and you'd like to see him do that against some of these other, like Allen Robinson. I would love to see him, match up with Allen Robinson next week. The Vikings obviously have two guys. One of them's not healthy right now, but they have two great receivers, and then the Lions have Kenny Galladay. So I would have no problem putting Jair up against any of those guys. So I'm just glad to see him playing at a high level.
I wish we could have some inside linebackers who were more than competent against the pass, because it seems like the only time Jair gets beat is inside. When he's playing zone, you're going to push everything inside because you're expecting inside help, but when our inside linebackers are not good against the pass, we get beat over the middle a ton, and Jair gets beat inside way more often than he gets beat outside. So if we could just
Yeah,
get some.
that has a lot to do with Mike Pettin having the guys play more outside, outside coverage type things, like, and that's just a tendency of Mike Pettin's man
Yeah,
coverage defense overall. So
yeah, that's just zone defense. You're gonna want to push everything inside because there's supposed to be uh, guys playing coverage inside. But when, like I said, our linebackers aren't the best at that, we get exploited there a lot. And every week we get beat with a crossing route where someone inside, whether it be a linebacker or safety or nickel corner, doesn't do their job, doesn't follow the right route, or whatever happens. That we get beat by that a lot. So just imagine this defense with good, reliable cover linebackers, then we could have Jair that could be like Revis Island. Like we could just have him sit on one side of the field, and if whoever he's lined up against, you're just gonna get shut out. He's gonna funnel everything inside, and whatever goes deep on his sideline is gonna be shut down. That'd be awesome because I think he
I
does
think,
have that talent.
yeah, I think Mike Pettin's kind of gotten comfortable since Ibrahim Campbell has come back. I think he's gotten comfortable putting Campbell in that second middle linebacker slot on nickel defense and things like that. I think I think he has a lot of confidence in him and his abilities to cover the middle, and I think they're going to continue to do that, and hopefully that kind of helps. We saw it have a couple benefits on Sunday against the Redskins. We were a little better in terms of the inside passing game on defense than we've been in recent weeks. No Redskins tight end particularly did extremely well against us, so that was a change in what we've seen recently, and I think that has a lot to do with the game plan overall on defense, which I thought was one of the better ones we've had.
Yeah, have you guys noticed we've been using BJ Goodson a lot less lately? Ever since Ibrahim Campbell got activated, it's been a lot of Chandon Sullivan and Ibrahim Campbell instead of BJ Goodson in the middle there. I mean, I haven't really seen any like jaw-dropping results from the defense since we've done that, but and it, I like the idea of it. Get somebody fast in there because that middle of our defense has been rough lately, both in the run and pass defense.
Yeah, that's been interesting. We know Mike Pettin would probably prefer. He likes to play small. He likes to defend the pass rather than the run. We know that. So I'm sure he prefers a guy like Ibrahim Campbell or Chandon Sullivan over a big-bodied linebacker, downhill defender like B.J. Goodson. And just to expand on that, our run defense is still very bad. We shut down Dwayne Haskins. The passing game couldn't get the ball moving until late in the fourth, but they had a few drives in the middle of the game where they just called like 7, 8 straight runs, and every single one was going for 5, 6, 7, 10 yards. Darius Geis averaging 9 yards a carry almost 9 yards a carry before he left the game. It was brutal. It's like, what is there even a solution to this anymore? Is that just who we are? We're just not good against the run? Because wow.
I feel like we were better overall in the run defense than just the past few weeks. We've been better, and I think especially on that first drive, you saw them kind of shut down a couple runs there early on, and that was a huge momentum builder for our offense to go and get a score. Uh, but yeah, there was a lot of runs that we kind of stopped at the line of scrimmage, or maybe for 1 or 2 yard gains, and I think the more we do that, the better off we'll be going forward. Obviously, the thing that hurts us is when teams come out and get 1 or 2 big runs that change the game. I'd rather obviously we just allow a couple runs for 4, 5, 6 yards at a time at most. That way we just are consistent enough where we can stop the run to some extent and still try to make teams pass on us, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, the real worry there is that we're going to face a team in the playoffs that just commits to the run, which a lot of teams that we've beat up on defense haven't done. They've, whether it be because we have a big lead or whatever it may be, they just stop giving the ball to the running back and they just commit to the passing game, and that's where we kind of shut them down. But I mean, imagine us facing the Saints in the playoffs. Do you think Sean Payton's going to abandon the run? No, he's going to run Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray into the dirt. He's not stupid. That's the real weakness of our team. We put it on film every single week. So I'm very scared of an opposing offense just running up and down the field on us. Because Mike Penton's, he said this like week 3 or week 4. It's a lot easier to fly to Miami than it is to walk there, which is true, but we're going to face a team eventually, I'm sure, that's going to be content with walking to Miami. And maybe we'll be facing a team that's content with walking there this week. We have the Chicago Bears coming to Green Bay. 200th meeting between these two teams, the oldest rivalry in sports, and it should be a good one. It really should. The Bears are 7-6. They are on a 3-game win streak. Mitch Trubisky is playing better, a little bit better. They are still in playoff contention, believe it or not, after that horrible start to the season. After being 4-6, they are still in playoff contention. They need some help, but it starts with them winning out, and that starts with Week 15 at the Packers. And it's definitely going to be a big game for them. It's probably going to be a bigger game for them than it is for us, which isn't surprising. So yeah, they're going to come to play. This is a must-win for them. Are you guys at all worried of this Chicago Bears team? Because I think we should be.
Yeah, you're definitely worried about a desperate team who's fighting for their playoff lives. You kind of saw that with the Eagles. That loss that we had against them, they were really desperate because sitting at 1-2, if they were to move to 1-3, that would be a tough hill to climb, and they're still overcoming some of the losses that they took so far now. But yeah, that was a desperate team, and they came out and they beat us. And the LA Chargers were desperate. They were fighting for their playoff lives, and they came out and beat us. So we have to kind of be desperate too, because we're trying to make the playoffs as well now. And this is the time where we're just as desperate as anybody to get in the dance. I wouldn't say I'm nervous or scared, because we can beat this team. We beat them in week 1, and we've only gotten better. So I would like to think that we can go out and do our job here and essentially put away the Bears' playoff hopes. That would be a real nice thing to do.
Yeah, man, the Bears are in the same exact position that we were in 2018. We had to go to Chicago week 15 and just play for our lives. The Bears were pretty much playing for the division that week, and now it's opposite. They got to come to Lambeau, and they're trying to possibly make it. They need a lot to happen. I believe they need the Vikings to lose out and the Rams to lose at least 2 out of these last 3 games, which is a tough task. But it starts this week with the Packers, and they're on a 3-game win streak. They've won 4 out of the last 5, and Mitch Trubisky's playing a little bit better than he was earlier. And the defense hasn't really changed. The defense has been really good so far this year. Just like you said, I do think this game is going to be a lot tougher than people were thinking earlier in the year. The Bears are on a roll, and the Packers aren't. There's no such thing as an easy win in these past couple games for the Packers. This is going to be a good game. I'm excited.
We both kind of are on the not opposite ends of the spectrum, but close to it. We're trending downwards a little bit, hopefully only a little bit, and the Bears are definitely trending upwards. And it's funny because I had an interaction with a Bears fan earlier this week where I was kind of like laughing. Like, it was kind of funny to me that they thought they had a shot at the playoffs, but he broke it down for me, and they actually do. They don't need that much help. They need some help, obviously, but I mean, they just need the Vikings to lose a couple games here, which they play the Bears week 17, so it's in their own destiny. And then they need the Rams to drop 1 or maybe 2. But those fans definitely are hopeful for a playoff spot, and you better believe that team is as well. They're going to come in prepared, and hopefully we're just as prepared. Like, as you said, Bron, that's a great point. Against desperate teams this season, we have not played well. So I hope we're not. I hate trap games. I don't think trap games are a real thing, but I do believe some weeks we prepare more than others. And I mean, I hope we come into this game ready to expect a fight. I hope we're not. I don't know why we would, but I hope we're not expecting them to just lie down, because they are a very tough team. Mitch Trubisky, as much as we clown on him, is playing better the past few weeks. I still don't think he's good. And the hope is maybe that he plays well to close out the season, and then the Bears stick with him. Maybe give him an extension this offseason. That'd be hilarious. But yeah, I am kind of worried about this game, because imagine we lose this game, because then we're 10-4, and we're going into Minnesota in a game that suddenly became virtually a must win for the division. Like that would not be ideal.
Yeah, no, it would not be ideal, that's for sure, because then you're talking about going into Minnesota being a game that we have to win. And that, wow, I mean, that's a tough position to be in. I don't care who you are. I mean, that's become one of the hardest places to play in the NFL.
Yeah, they're
That
undefeated
stadium.
at home this
Yeah,
season.
yeah, and for us especially, we haven't won in that building yet. I mean, we've said that ad nauseum, but the thing about that game is, I don't want to get into it too much, but uh, you know, that's a Monday Night Football game, and Kirk Cousins is 0-8 on Monday Night Football. These might be useless stats, but you have to account for them when you're looking at the opponent and things like that. But the problem is, he's playing better, and he always plays good against us regardless. So we have to expect a great Minnesota team, and before we even get that far, we have to expect a great Bears team, and we have to pretend they have a great quarterback, and we have to play them like they're one of the best teams in football in order to get the win here this Sunday. So I really can't express the importance of this game enough. We have to come out and make a statement, whether that's beating them soundly or just getting a win and dominating on defense, whatever the case may be. We have to make a statement, and we have to make the Vikings scared of us when we come down to their stadium.
Yeah, I'd be happy with another 10-3 win, honestly. Uh, Mitch Trubisky, they're kind of letting him run more. I've noticed. Like, I know that's the thing a lot of Bears fans complain about, how they're forcing him to be a pocket passer when that's just not who he is. So I think the past on their winning streak they're on, he's a lot more mobile. Matt Nagy's kind of loosening the leash, let him scramble when he needs to, because we all know he's not a good passer. So I think that's something we should be worrying about. Maybe his wheels. He looked like kind of like a run first quarterback on some snaps against the Cowboys. So that's something we certainly have to worry about. I think we've contained mobile quarterbacks pretty well this season. I mean, we haven't played too many. Dak Prescott, I guess we contain him pretty well. Yeah, I think that's something
But
we need
that's
to
gonna
focus.
be that's gonna be a problem. I mean, Mitch Trubisky is maybe one of the best running quarterbacks in football, and it was kind of surprising to see him just kind of Matt Nagy just kind of throw that out of the playbook and try to make him something that he's not, which is a good quarterback, and that's kind of harsh, and that's a bit cynical, yeah. But I just you have to use his strengths to his advantage, and when you just take probably the best element of his game as a quarterback away, they're going to struggle, and there's a lot of factors that have gone into them playing better overall, but the fact that he's been able to kind of let loose and have the option to run with the football in his hands, that's something that's helped them win games in a big way. So, and we're not the best against mobile quarterbacks, so we're going to have to figure out a game plan to account for that, as well as their sound running game. They've got some receivers on the outside. Their offense is no joke, so we can't rely on our defense to just score, stop them, and we don't have to score much. We're gonna have to come out and beat a good Bears defense. And that good Bears defense is without a couple guys, but it's also they're gonna have Akeem Hicks back, even though they just actually lost Roquan Smith for the season. So a couple moving parts in there, but what do you guys think of the Bears defense as we head into a big game versus the Bears at Lambeau?
Well, yeah, that's what I think we should be keying in on, that. No Roquan Smith, but they are getting Akeem Hicks back. But I think that's easy to offset if you're the Packers. I mean, when they've got Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks in the game, their pass rush is exponentially better than minus the one of them. So I think the way you offset that is with the quick passing game, and the quick passing game can go to the running backs because the Bears don't have Roquan Smith. It's funny how that works. I think we can create a lot of mismatches this week, similar to what we saw in week 7 and 8 against the Chiefs and Raiders. That's what I'm hoping for, anyways. I'm hoping we get back to the quick passing game, design routes, design plays for the running backs out of the backfield. Because God, we just need to do whatever was working back in the middle of the season. Because God knows it's not working right now. Whatever we're doing, I think this is the perfect week to get back into that style of offense.
Yeah, you're right. And what I'm concerned about is if we go into the game with a similar game plan like we did against the 49ers, where we're going to scheme things open and things like that. And when we're facing a pass rush that's really going to not give us much time to get guys open and things of that nature, we have to get the quick passing game going. And when Matt LaFleur wasn't going to change the game plan, and we were just kind of just struggling to get plays off because we had no time in the pocket for Aaron, I'm just afraid that that's going to happen. Hopefully Matt LaFleur recognizes what we're going up against, sees what we did against the 49ers and self-corrects there, and we're going to have to come out and really pass the ball quickly. The quick passing game it seems like we talk about this a lot, but that's really been one of the most successful ways our passing offense can win. And I think this week is especially advantageous for us if we come out and use that to our advantage and just get Aaron Jones involved, get Jamal Williams involved, Adams on screens, Geronimo, get him short passing, let him get in the open field and make moves. Even MVS, we can, if we use his speed to our ability and to our advantage, we can get him the ball and kind of let him make plays like he did in the Kansas City game on minimal catches, but he goes and takes them for a lot of yards after the catch. So I think the short passing game and the quick passing game is something we need to get back to. And we don't have to score a ton of points, but if we move the ball well on offense, we can win the game.
I don't think 10 points is going to do it this time. Week 1, we only put up 10 and we were able to win by a touchdown. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. The Bears defense isn't the crazy turnover. I believe they led the league in turnovers last year. This time, not the same, but they're still top 5 in points allowed with only 17. So this is going to be a tough matchup. The Bears defense isn't getting as much hype as they were last year, but they're still a super solid unit. Losing Roquan Smith is going to hurt, but getting Akeem Hicks back, that pass rush is going to be dangerous, man. I hope the tackles can hold up this time. They had a lot of trouble week 1. I believe Aaron got sacked 5 times. Yeah, man, I can't stress it enough. This game is going to be tough. We really got to defend Lambeau. I hate losing to the Bears at home. I just don't even want to think about it, but yeah, man, if we can just beat the Bears and then just have a statement game next week, I think that locks up the division, doesn't it?
Well, if we win this week,
yeah.
If we win this week, does next week even matter, really?
Well, we'd still have to beat the Lions, because let's say we lost to the Vikings in Week 16, we would have to beat the Lions.
Okay, well, like I said already, if we lose this week, that Vikings game becomes so important for us. So yeah, it'd definitely be nice to defend Lambeau, get a great win, 200th meeting of this iconic rivalry, get a great win, get the momentum up going into Minnesota, a place we've never won. It's definitely needed. This game is definitely important for both parties, and it hasn't always been like that in the Packers-Bears rivalry history. But yeah, it's going to be a great game. The energy, I'm sure, is going to be amazing at Lambeau, freezing cold. Week 15, playoff implications, December football. It's going to be great. But for this podcast, that's going to do it. This podcast is now on Spotify. Today in Titletown on Spotify. It's going to be on iTunes shortly. Of course, it's on YouTube. You can listen to it on any of those 3 platforms. And yeah, for me, for Bron at Lambeau Leapers and Mason at Packer Posts, we'll see you next time, and go Pack Go.